Have you ever felt like life keeps throwing obstacles your way, no matter how hard you try to avoid them? Do you ever wonder why some people seem to remain calm in the middle of chaos, while others fall apart? Here's the truth. It's not what happens to us that defines our lives. It's how we choose to respond. If you've ever felt overwhelmed, lost, or unsure of your next step, then you're in the right place. Welcome to a journey rooted in one of the most powerful philosophies in human history, Stoicism. Before we dive deep into this life-changing perspective, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Join a community committed to mastering the mind and facing life with strength, purpose, and peace. 1. Gratitude, the gift of being alive. How often do we stop and recognize the miracle of simply being alive? This moment, right now, is unique. Never before and never again will this exact configuration of life, breath, and consciousness exist. Yet we often let it pass unnoticed. We're quick to count what's missing, but slow to appreciate what is. Gratitude isn't just a feel-good emotion, it's a perspective shift. When we learn to look for what's right, even in the midst of what's wrong, we begin to live more deliberately. In the rush of deadlines, disappointments, and distractions, we forget that waking up each day is a privilege denied to many. Each morning is a silent gift, every heartbeat a drum of endurance. The mere act of breathing is often overlooked, until it's taken from us or someone we love. Think of how quickly we notice life's absence. The phone call delivering bad news, the hospital visit, the tragedy scrolling across a news feed. In those moments, we remember how sacred life is. But what if we didn't wait for sorrow to remind us? Stoicism teaches us to practice gratitude not as a luxury, but as a discipline, especially when life gets tough. It's easy to be thankful when the sun is shining, when the bills are paid, when health is stable. But what about when you're in pain? When you're uncertain, lost, or grieving? That's when gratitude becomes a spiritual exercise. Not denial of pain, but the radical act of acknowledging that even now, especially now, there's something to be grateful for. The lesson, the resilience, the chance to rebuild. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily of the fragility of life, not to feel fear, but to stay grounded in appreciation. His journal, Meditations, was a daily confrontation with impermanence. He reflected on death not to be morbid, but to cherish the day. If the Emperor of Rome found time to reflect on the fleeting nature of life and the necessity of thankfulness, how much more should we? Gratitude for Marcus wasn't passive. It was practice, a conscious recentering of the soul. When we pause to acknowledge the beauty in ordinary moments, we begin to reclaim a sense of power, the power to live deeply, right now. A breeze through a window, a shared glance, laughter in the kitchen. These are not small things. These are life itself. In a world obsessed with more success, more possessions, more attention, Stoic gratitude reminds us that what we already have is enough. And in this stillness, we find clarity. Life isn't just something to survive, it's a gift we must honor, with presence, with humility, with open eyes. Gratitude sharpens our vision. It brings into focus what truly matters. And as we learn to appreciate life in its rawest form, we discover a deeper sense of joy unshaken by circumstance. 2. Pain is a teacher, not an enemy. Pain is not the enemy. In fact, it may be our greatest teacher. We are conditioned to avoid pain, to numb it, to resent it. But what if pain wasn't a punishment? What if it were a compass pointing toward growth? When we shift our mindset, pain becomes not a foe, but a guide. It whispers truths we often ignore when life is easy. It stretches us, refines us, and ultimately makes us stronger. Seneca once said, We suffer more in imagination than in reality. And it's true, the mind can torment us far worse than reality ever could. We anticipate disaster, rehearse pain, and live in fear of what might go wrong. But when difficulty actually strikes, it's often more manageable than the dread we built around it. Pain becomes inflated through imagination, until we confront it directly and realize we are more capable than we thought. So much of our distress comes not from the event itself, but from the stories we build around it. A breakup becomes a reflection of unworthiness. A failure becomes a prophecy of doom. But pain in itself is just sensation, just experience. It is our interpretation that gives it power. Stoicism teaches us to challenge these interpretations, to strip them of exaggeration, and to return to what is real. Only then can we find meaning within the suffering. Every challenge, every heartbreak, every setback, it carries a lesson. And that lesson gives birth to strength. Without struggle, there is no growth. Muscles tear before they grow. Hearts break before they open wider. Pain pushes us beyond comfort zones and into the raw territory of transformation. We don't become wise in spite of pain. We become wise because of it. When we stop resisting our pain and instead face it with honesty, we unlock a powerful truth. Clarity comes not in comfort, but in discomfort. The easy road rarely leads to insight. The rough path, the one we'd rather avoid, is often the one that reshapes us. Through tears, we see clearly. Through loss, we learn what truly matters. Through adversity, we uncover who we are at our core. Pain clears the fog. It strips away illusions. It shows us who we really are and what we're capable of becoming. It doesn't come to destroy us, but to awaken us, to call us forward. Pain invites us into deeper compassion, resilience, humility, and awareness. And when we answer that call, not with resentment but with presence, we emerge not just healed, but transformed. 3. Control what you can. Let go of what you can't. We waste so much energy trying to control the uncontrollable, other people's opinions, the past, the future, random misfortunes. We obsess over outcomes, replay mistakes, and try to micromanage every detail of life. But control is an illusion. No amount of effort will change what is beyond our reach. And yet, in trying to control everything, we lose control of the one thing we actually possess: ourselves. Epictetus, a former slave turned Stoic teacher, made it clear there are two domains: what's within our control and what isn't. That's it. It's a simple dichotomy, but a profound one. Our inner world, our choices, perceptions, and actions, is ours alone. The rest, that belongs to fate, chance, nature, or others. To waste time trying to control externals is to live in a state of constant tension and disappointment. Our thoughts, our choices, our responses, these belong to us. This is where our energy should go, not into changing the weather or people's moods or political outcomes, but into mastering our reactions, into cultivating reason, patience, and virtue. When we anchor ourselves in this domain of control, life becomes less chaotic. We no longer ride the roller coaster of external events. We stand firm, grounded in something deeper. But the outcomes, the external world, they do not. That job you didn't get, that apology that never came, that storm that ruined your plans, these are not failures, they are facts. The Stoic doesn't deny misfortune. They accept it, then respond with strength. Because control isn't about dominating life. It's about navigating it with grace. The moment we stop fighting reality and focus instead on mastering our inner world, we gain true freedom. This is the paradox of Stoicism. Surrendering what you never truly had gives you back what you always did. Freedom doesn't come from bending the world to your will. It comes from bending your will to meet the world with wisdom. The less we need things to go our way, the more peace we find. Inner peace is not about avoiding storms. It's about learning to stand calmly in the rain, untouched by the chaos outside. Life will never be fully within our grasp, but peace, purpose, and clarity, they're available now if we let go, if we choose response over reaction, if we live aligned with what's ours to shape, the self. In mastering that, we master everything. 4. Emotional mastery and the strength of silence. Emotions are not the enemy. They are signals, messengers that something within us is being touched. Think of your emotions like a compass. They do not always point to truth, but they point to meaning. When anger flares, it might be touching a value that was violated. When sorrow arrives, it might be honoring something that mattered. These emotional waves are not to be suppressed or denied. They are to be acknowledged with curiosity and compassion. The Stoics never said, "Feel nothing." They said, "Do not become a slave to what you feel." That is the difference between awareness and impulsivity. Your emotions carry insight, but they should never carry your decisions. But if we let them control us, we lose ourselves. When we are governed by unfiltered emotion, we become reactionary creatures. We shout before we understand. We act before we reflect. We judge before we listen. This is not strength, and it's volatility. Like a ship tossed about by every gust of wind, the person who reacts without mastery becomes a stranger to themselves, defined by fleeting impulses instead of enduring values. Losing control doesn't make us authentic. It makes us unstable. Emotional indulgence is not freedom. It's bondage to momentary chaos. Real power begins when you realize you are not obligated to act on everything you feel. Stoicism calls for space, the space between emotion and reaction. This space is where your power lives. Between the rising of anger and the unleashing of it is a pause, a sacred gap where reason can enter. It is in this space that you remember who you are. The Stoics trained their minds to expand this pause. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that you have power over your mind, not outside events. That is the art, recognizing that no emotion, no matter how intense, has the right to hijack your character. The space doesn't suppress feeling, it filters action. It doesn't kill passion, it gives it form and direction. When anger rises, we pause. When fear shows up, we breathe. When sadness hits, we feel, but we don't collapse. This is the Stoic response, calmness in chaos. When anger surges, take one breath. It is a rebellion against the primitive urge to strike. When fear comes, ground yourself in presence, because courage is not the absence of fear, but the discipline to continue. When sadness visits, allow it to speak, but don't let it define the story of your life. Emotional mastery isn't about being numb. It's about staying rooted while the storm passes overhead. You observe the wave. You do not drown in it. Silence is power. You don't need to prove your strength in every argument or display your pain to earn sympathy. In a noisy world, silence is mistaken for weakness. But often it is the strongest thing you can offer. To withhold your anger when insulted, to stay composed when provoked, to mourn privately without theatrics. These are not signs of emotional detachment, but of spiritual maturity. You don't owe everyone your explanation. Your silence is not emptiness, it is intentional restraint. And that restraint, far from being passive, is a form of deep conscious presence. It tells the world, I control myself, and that is enough. There is strength in stillness, in choosing when to speak and when to remain silent. Stillness is not a lack of action, it is the mastery of action. The wise choose their words with care, knowing that not every thought deserves voice. There is a nobility in the measured response. The pause before you speak is the forge of your character. Seneca said, "Sometimes even to live is an act of courage." In the same spirit, sometimes to remain still, in pain, in provocation, in misunderstanding, is the ultimate act of defiance. Stillness breaks the cycle of reactive living and replaces it with intentional being. Let your presence, not your noise, do the talking. True influence comes not from how loudly you speak, but how clearly you live. You don't need to be the loudest voice to be the most impactful. Your integrity speaks louder than your arguments. Your self-control resonates deeper than your outbursts. Let your life, your calmness in crisis, your grace under pressure, your refusal to retaliate, be the message. In a world addicted to performance, choose substance. Choose the silent strength of emotional mastery. Let the peace within you echo louder than the chaos around you. 5. Discipline, virtue, and the quiet power of living well. Discipline isn't punishment. It's an act of love. To discipline yourself is not to be cruel. It is to choose what is best for you over what is easiest. It is a daily affirmation that your higher self deserves your loyalty. Discipline means you love yourself enough to delay gratification, to reject mediocrity, to endure discomfort for the sake of growth. It is not the harsh voice of condemnation. It is the steady hand of wisdom guiding you back to center. Self-discipline is not about self-denial. It is self-respect. It is saying to yourself, "I am worth the effort." Every time you say no to distraction and yes to your higher self, you build a life of virtue. Temptation is constant. The lure of comfort, the ease of conformity, the seduction of quick rewards. But every refusal to be pulled off course is an affirmation of purpose. Each time you resist the call of impulse, you cast a vote for who you want to become. Discipline is the quiet architect of virtue. It's not flashy, it doesn't trend, but it builds a foundation so solid that no storm can shatter it. Over time, these small refusals accumulate into inner fortitude. You are becoming, brick by brick, a person of strength, clarity, and direction. The Stoics didn't chase pleasure, they chased purpose. Epictetus taught that freedom isn't doing what you want, it's doing what's right. The Stoics understood that pleasure is fleeting, but purpose is enduring. They didn't deny joy, they just refused to worship it. Instead of being led by desire, they led their desires. Their goal was eudaimonia, flourishing through virtue. They chose meaning over comfort, legacy over luxury. And in that pursuit, they discovered a deeper joy, one that pleasure alone can never give. It's the joy that comes from living in harmony with your values, from becoming who you were meant to be. They knew that true joy isn't found in excess, but in alignment, when our actions match our values. This is the heart of Stoicism, integrity. When what you say, what you believe, and how you live are in sync, there is peace. No more inner conflict, no more shame. You don't have to remember what mask you wore yesterday because you're the same person everywhere. That kind of alignment creates not just external trust, but inner serenity. You can sleep at night. You can look yourself in the mirror. The excesses of the world, more fame, more wealth, more approval, are distractions from this deeper, quieter form of joy. Happiness, they taught, is not something you pursue. It's what you become when you live rightly. You can't chase happiness like a prize. It doesn't come from outcomes, and it flows from orientation. Live rightly, and happiness follows as a byproduct. The modern world sells happiness like a product. Follow this routine, buy this item, take this shortcut. But the Stoics saw through this illusion. Happiness is not found. It is cultivated. It grows in the soil of consistency, honesty, and discipline. It is the echo of a life well lived, not the trophy of temporary satisfaction. Be good, and you will feel good, in the deepest sense. You don't need applause. You don't need validation. You need consistency, clarity, and character. Modern life is addicted to attention, but Stoicism teaches us to unhook from external approval. You are not what they say about you. You are what you repeatedly choose to do. Consistency makes character. Clarity protects you from distraction. And character, your inner compass, guides you when no one is watching. Praise is sweet, but it's fleeting. Build a life that doesn't collapse when the applause fades. Do good because it's right, not because it's noticed. That's the quiet power of virtue. It thrives without a spotlight. Every day you're sculpting your soul, not with loud declarations, but quiet, disciplined choices. Life isn't shaped in grand moments, but in daily repetitions. You are the artist and the clay. Each morning, you make choices: what you eat, what you read, how you speak, how you respond. These aren't small things. They are the etchings of identity. You don't become great all at once. You become great in unnoticed ways, in turning off the noise to meditate, in holding your tongue when it's easier to lash out, in finishing what you start. This is the Stoic path, not showy, not dramatic, just daily, deliberate sculpting of a soul worth living in. In a noisy world that rewards chaos, choose calm. In a culture that promotes distraction, choose discipline. And in a life full of uncertainty, choose clarity through philosophy. The Stoics didn't teach us how to escape life. They taught us how to live it with wisdom, grace, and strength. You have more control than you think, not over events, but over how you meet them. And when you meet life with integrity, every step you take becomes a quiet act of power. Thank you for joining this journey into Stoic wisdom. If this message resonated with you, subscribe and share it with someone who needs this reminder today. Remember, life will test you, but you already have everything you need to rise above it.